Imagine you're 17 years old. Your mum heads off to Australia for the summer, leaving you and your brothers and sister with a babysitter. Then the babysitter suddenly passes away. You've got no money, 5 kids left to fend for themselves, and somehow you end up pretending to be an adult and working in the fashion industry. Today, I'm sharing Don't Tell Mum the Babysitter's Dead from my DVD collection to see whether this 1991 comedy is still as much fun all these years later. The movie stars Christina Applegate as Sue Ellen, or Swell Crandall, the oldest of 5 siblings who are looking forward to having their house practically to themselves while their mum is away in Australia. Unfortunately for them, Mum has other ideas. She hires a very strict elderly babysitter to look after them, and let's just say that arrangement doesn't last particularly long. Suddenly, the kids are on their own, and there's another problem, as the money Mum left for them has disappeared. So Sue Ellen decides she needs to get a job. After a rather unsuccessful experience working in a fast food restaurant, she decides to take a different approach and creates a fake resume, pretending she's an experienced adult, and lands herself a job at a fashion company, and somehow she's pretty good at it. One of the things I like about the movie is how Sue Ellen starts the movie wanting a carefree summer without her mum around. Instead, she's suddenly worrying about money, food, her siblings, and a job. She basically gets a crash course in adulthood and discovers that being a grown-up isn't quite as easy as she thought. But let's also talk about Kenny, who at the beginning of the movie is a lazy, rebellious teenager who doesn't exactly look like he's about to become the responsible one in the family. As Sue Ellen becomes increasingly busy with work, Kenny starts taking responsibility at home. And I love that transformation. In some ways, while Sue Ellen is learning how to survive in the adult working world, Kenny is learning how to grow up at home. Something else I like about the movie is the 90s feel from the clothes, hairstyles, offices, and the technology. Does it still hold up? You have to accept one enormous question of how on earth does Sue Ellen manage to convince all these adults that she's an experienced professional? And that's part of the fun of the movie, as it isn't meant to be realistic. It's one of those comedies where you accept the craziness and just go along for the ride, and underneath the comedy, the siblings actually start to pull together, and Kenny in particular ended up being one of my favourite characters. I'm also curious to know what happened to the characters who played Kenny, Melissa and Walter, and some of those other faces we remember from the movie. I'm going to save that for a separate Where Are They Now video, as I'd love to know what happened to the supporting actors. Did you ever see this movie at the cinemas, and is it in your DVD collection? And who would have been your favourite character? Let me know in the comments. Up next is Father of the Bride. Your daughter comes home from travelling, which is wonderful. She tells you she's met someone and she's getting married. Now suddenly you're paying for a wedding. Your house is being taken over, a very enthusiastic wedding planner has arrived, and all you really want is your little girl back. Welcome to the world of George Banks. The other DVD I'm sharing is the 1991 comedy Father of the Bride. Steve Martin plays George Banks, husband to Nina, played by Diane Keaton, and father to Annie and Mattie. Everything seems perfectly normal until Annie returns home from Europe and announces that she's met a man named Brian Mackenzie and they're getting married. George is thrilled. Sort of more likely everyone else is thrilled. George Banks isn't really against Brian. He's struggling with what Brian represents. His daughter has grown up. She's getting married, and George isn't ready for it. We see Annie as a grown woman, but George still sees the little girl he raised. And then Frank arrives, played by Martin Short. George wants something simple. Frank doesn't do simple. And poor George slowly watches his idea of a small wedding disappear along with his money. Then you have B.D. Wong as Howard working alongside Frank, and together they add another completely different energy to the movie. The supporting characters whom I forgot about were George Newbern as Brian, Kieran Culkin as Matty, the younger son of George and Nina, along with Brian's parents. Steve Martin, Diane Keaton, and Martin Short are the names we immediately associate with this movie, but the smaller characters help create the family around them. The central story of the movie hasn't aged, as parents still have to deal with their children growing up. Weddings can still become ridiculously expensive. Families still disagree over wedding plans, and I'm pretty sure there are fathers wondering how something that started as a nice little wedding became that expensive. You don't need a wedding planner to understand George. But just like Don't Tell Mum the Babysitters did, revisiting this has made me wonder about the other actors. So what happened to Brian and Matty and the other supporting characters? That will also be in a Where Are They Now video. I'd love to know, did you see this at the cinema or do you own it on DVD? Who is your favourite character? And if you were George Banks, how would you cope with Frank planning your daughter's wedding? Both movies give you a great connection. Don't Tell Mum is about a teenager discovering what being an adult is really like, while Father of the Bride is about discovering he has to let his adult daughter go. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great day or night wherever you are. Bye for now.